There is a fascinating audio recording that has been leaked in which a prominent Republican is caught saying that Donald Trump is, quote, killing us, meaning killing not even necessarily Republicans, but even some Trumpian Republicans in important local races. And this is a riveting peek behind the curtain in the chaos of the Republican Party under Donald Trump. The Texas Republican House Speaker, Dennis Bonnen, is on an audio recording rather, asking for help ousting members of his own Republican Party in 2020. He's on recording calling a female lawmaker vile and saying that Donald Trump is, quote, killing us. Now, Democrats have filed a lawsuit that accuses Bonin of breaking campaign finance laws. Who isn't breaking campaign finance laws these days, right? And there is also a state probe into allegations of corruption. This meeting was secretly recorded by the CEO of a group called Empower Texans, which is a far-right group whose CEO, Michael Quinn Sullivan, said, the reason I recorded it was to protect myself, which is also a very interesting detail in all of this. And this is all happening because Republicans are at risk of losing control of the Texas House. As you probably know if you follow politics, Texas is a historically conservative state, although there have been shades of purple more and more recently, particularly in some areas. But regardless, Republicans have controlled the Texas House for almost 2 decades. And now Republicans are in a position where they could lose control of the House if they lose 9 seats to Democrats in 2020. Many Republicans are panicking, and Bonin is blaming Donald Trump. He says on the recording, with all due respect to Trump, who I love, he's killing us in urban, suburban districts. Now, this warrants some thought. Is it true that Donald Trump is killing them? The answer is very regional. It may well be that in Texas, in urban and suburban districts, Trump is hurting the brand of Republicans that Bonin is a part of. In some parts of the country, it's not that clear, although increasingly, including in North Carolina, which we've already dealt with on today's show, Trump is certainly not helping. Ultimately, if Trump destroys the Republican Party as we know it, or at least seriously hurts it for a decade, it is their fault. They voted for him. They are choosing this rope to hang themselves with, if ultimately it is what they hang themselves with. But it's up to us to make it happen. And I've talked about that already. There's another thing to point out. Dennis Bonnen and the contingent in Texas that is trying to get other Republicans removed from office, this is an extreme group of Republicans. Dennis Bonnen loves Trump, but he claims to recognize that Donald Trump is hurting them. What Dennis Bonnen and his cronies are trying to do is remove what are some of the more moderate Texas Republicans and replace them with unhinged Trumpian lunatics. He merely recognizes, or at least believes, that Donald Trump is hurting their cause to do that. We should not mistake this for Bonnen being the moderate. Bonnen is an absolute maniac. And in the end, we get to the same place as nationally on this issue. If we vote, we can do good things. If we vote nationally in November of 2020, we can remove Trump. We have the numbers. It's a question of how many of those numbers will turn up at the ballot box. If Texan Democrats vote, they can potentially flip Texas blue, which would be an accomplishment of stunning, historic proportions. If we don't vote, if you, Texas Democrats, don't vote, then everything stays the same or potentially gets even worse. And in the end, I mean, it's like, when you have an election with so many different factors, Russian meddling, problems with voting machines, social media campaigns and echo chambers, right-wing media perpetuating the feedback loops through algorithmic echo chambers, all of the stuff we've talked about. It is really, Hillary not going to Wisconsin in the last days of the race. When you have elections that hinge on under 100,000 votes in 3 states, it's very hard to say this is the one thing that decided the results because there are so many other things that could have changed them. The one part that is completely clear is that if voter turnout wasn't 50%, if the left just got out and voted in droves, the answer is none of those little things matter. None of those medium-sized things matter because we just have the numbers. Now, of course, the opposite is true. If we don't vote and the right is able to invigorate their base and get out and vote, we don't stand a chance. And that's why ultimately you can blame whatever you want for 2016 in a pragmatic sense. Hillary not campaigning correctly towards the end, Russian meddling, fear of losing status, racism, blame anything you want, but know that we can we can outdo the impact of all of those elements by increasing voter turnout, which sounds like it should be easy to do, and it never quite works out, unfortunately.